Hey there once again, Sherry Kirchhoff here, Hip Eclectic Hope for Yang, with another update on Operation Freedom and the Yang painting and everything else that's going on. Basically, the messages and harassment and constant badgering over talking parents has not ceased still, but I got him to talk brag quite extensively about his skill, what he considers to be his skill in selling knives and marijuana grams to the homeless population in Denver. And, it's just really stupid fluff cover like, oh, I'm not in that anymore, but then bragging some more about his criminal endeavors. So, just really funny. And, still constantly on and on about, demanding visitation. And I have the paperwork going through the intake process with one of the companies I selected from his list. So, I do have to show compliance in the visitation order. Otherwise, he could counter with my non-compliance as a reason to get even more visitation rights or even unsupervised contact, etc., which is something that I absolutely cannot allow to have happen. So, in the process of, being badgered and then turning it around into an opportunity to let him brag about his criminal mischief, and making progress with the visitation with another company, I've also asked them for a release of information form so that I can, show them evidence and release my witnesses to how Aaron's developed since Operation Freedom, the abusive situation before we got him out of the house, and, anything that they've seen that would point, the visitation company to understand how dangerous this man is and how Aaron's doing so much better without the abuser in our lives. And, what happens, behavior regression, mental state, etc., if a visitation is allowed to occur. So, there are many factors here that the state of Colorado is refusing to acknowledge. So I finally have, one, maybe two witnesses who are willing to speak to, this visitation company. And, I'm just waiting a release of information form. And in the meantime, I'm, doing the intake paperwork, which will be sent to them probably tomorrow morning. So, moving forward where I'm supposed to be. And, being badgered all the while for it. And, every time the last few days that Thomas has made a demand for visitation, he's started, I counted how many topic lines, I think 5 different discussion topic lines just demanding visitation. So, he's obsessed. He can't even stick to the same subject line. He has to create new ones all the time. It's really getting out of hand. Well, it's been out of hand, but it continues to be out of hand. But in the process, the last few days when he's been sending his demands, I inquire about his progress with anger management or parenting classes or paying child support or anything that he is obligated to do as well. I'm not the only one with responsibilities in this matter. So, when he launches his demands, I counter with my inquiries. And he keeps saying over and over again that the classes are irrelevant, that he has his rights, and just saying over and over again, I don't have to take care of my responsibilities, he uses the word irrelevant a lot. So somebody must have told him that word, one of his buddies or some idiot, said, oh, it's not relevant, you're not taking your classes, you got visits, that's what you needed. So, he's convinced that he doesn't have to handle any responsibilities whatsoever, and that he can just have whatever he wants. Which is basically same stuff, different day with the last 5 years of Stetzer slavery hell. Was we had to do what he wanted when he wanted, and he didn't have to do anything for us. So, with the Colorado courts, also saying that they like to keep the post-divorce status the same as the post-marriage status for all parties. They're really sticking to that and making sure that my son and I have little to nothing, that they can't take away more, while they're letting our former owner just skate and do as he will. So I've got all of that on record, him bragging more extensively about his criminal behavior. He also used, the phrase, Frost cutlery aren't the best knives, but they're good steel. Like, his grammar's just, I had to translate his terrible typing, and it just, trying to read his messages too is just a joke. But, bragging about how every time he gets a knife, he sells it right away, how quickly he just processes through them. This is a dangerous, out of control weapons dealer, bragging about it on Talking Parents. So, he's really, they have when you watch on the crime shows, that moment where the criminal slips and then everything falls apart from under him, he's at that point. He thinks that he owns the world, and he's just gonna stomp on it, just like Trump is, and he's looking at his own demise as well. So, as threatening as this guy is, it's easier and easier to see that Thomas Stetzer is cracking under the pressures and the realizations that he's come to. He can't keep property anymore. The last 2 disabled women, got rid of them in one swift movement, even though for me it took considerably longer because of the forced pregnancy, the marriage at knife point. This was all his design, and with Denver's laws and lawmakers and law enforcers working together to ensure that criminals and predators can make money, and the disadvantaged classes can continue to be repressed and held down. This is a system that the city of Denver shows again and again that they enjoy. So even with all that working against me, I still managed to get rid of the son of a gun before he did any serious physical, irreparable harm to either Aaron or myself. Or mental harm. Aaron and I, even though we've been tortured and abused psychologically this whole time, we're going to be okay. We're into that okay-ing process, that recovery. So, we're making progress in our lives because we don't have his leash around our throats anymore. Literally for Aaron's sake, with Thomas grabbing him by the back of the neck, all that control, that physical aspect of the control is over. And he's grasping and clawing at what straws he has left, like his ability to use the Denver police to stalk and harass me and masquerade as performing a civil assist whenever he wants, or harassing me many times a day over Talking Parents website. He knows that he's lost his control. And I called him on all that on the Talking Parents too, listing off everything that he's no longer in control of anymore. Thomas Stetzer can't take our TANF food stamps for his hustle. He can't traffic me, force me to work, force me to make him money at terrible, painful, harmful, unsafe jobs. He can't, force me to labor in the home for him. He can't train my son to wallop me or our cat anymore. Everything about life has changed dramatically for the better since Operation Freedom, and there's so much less that he has control over, even though he has the ability to use a supervised parenting company or the Stalking Parents website or the Denver police to stalk, harass, and bother us and give us no peace. He can do that, but he's not physically right in our faces anymore. And that's gnawing him apart. And since Operation Freedom, where Aaron and I have been able to recover and grow and move forward, at least to any extent, little bits here, little bits there, but so many factors are just unimaginably better now than they were last year. Meanwhile, Thomas is forced to actually work a job. He's under, at least some measure of government scrutiny, his, however lax his probation may be. And he's been through, more than half a dozen prostitutes, just the ones I've seen in court. So he can't keep control of a human being anymore at all. And he's just tearing himself up. And he's trying to tear us up. And he can only do it through other means. He can't, directly attack anymore. He hasn't thought of a way yet. Although he, of course, as you know, has made it perfectly clear that he's planning to go to my son's school. So, that they're ready for him. So but just more cranking the same jack in a box. But in the meantime, I've made some more progress as well, not only in getting him to admit to his criminal behavior, which is epic for, my legal case, and, in case he actually does launch an in-person physical attack on myself or Aaron, there's this documentation backed up that can't be tampered with, deleted, altered, logged into Google Drive, etc. So it's a safeguard on top of everything I'm posting on my YouTube and Patreon pages. It's all that documentation. It's my life insurance and Aaron's. It ensures that he can't be dumb enough to try anything to harm us or abduct Aaron or abduct me, or, in short, he can't pull anything. Because it's known, it's recorded, it's documented. That's, leading me, that documentation chain. I have a new ally at Aaron's school in the, counseling and therapy department who, is able, she understands that with all the bragging that Thomas did about abusing me and abusing Aaron and his criminal behavior, the selling the drugs, the smelling like drugs, the selling the knives, if he displayed anything, any of his braggings and showings off that went unreported by Aaron's mandatory reporter teachers. This liaison in the, counseling and therapy, she'll be able to help convince the staff members in question and the former staff members in question that they actually need to report what they were made aware of before Operation Freedom. So, there needs to actually be accountability. because attackers and people who mistreat us and, you know, other assorted criminals and undesirables can get away with what they do only if their deeds are hidden. As soon as evil comes to light, the public at large demands that it's ended, or whatever power of authority, you know, demands that it's ended. Because it needs to be, once people are made aware of the misdeeds of the you know, anything that needs to be stopped. You know, evil actions can only be safely done when there's secrecy, when there's, you know, that hush-hush factor, when there's no exposure. So that leads me on to the second topic of the video today's little chat. Oops. I had to adjust my camera quick. But the second topic of my discussion for today is about progress that I've made in Yang painting, people that I've been in contact with over all this human rights battle, and the chat with Xfinity. I did officially, I was able to get rid of Xfinity Comcast in favor of CenturyLink for my internet service. On top of, not fueling and funding the Yang Media blackout, there's, the matter of affordability. CenturyLink is like $30, $40 cheaper than Xfinity has been. And with the different mode of service, Xfinity shares the signal around the neighborhood. Like there's an Xfinity guest Wi-Fi, channel that's set up on every Xfinity modem. So your gig speed or whatever you're paying for is being spread out, which is kind of nice because as you're driving through town you can catch internet signal. However, as you move through town, that signal is interrupted and you keep getting, lost internet errors on any of your relevant apps like navigation or music or car insurance monitoring, or anything that requires internet as you travel is interrupted, stopped, forced to shut down as you surf the various Xfinity networks. So it's more of a pain in the neck than it is a benefit in all reality. So, between the Yang Media blackout, the sharing the signal, the weird Wi-Fi in and outs, and the affordability of CenturyLink over Xfinity, I did finally make the switch. And in so doing, ran into quite a bit of a snag, that sorry to see you go scam. Certain companies like, Verizon, Xfinity, etc., put you on contracts for usage. And whereas I was told when, during Operation Freedom, when I cut the cable subscription and boosted the internet speed to supposedly 1 gig, but never actually got anywhere near 1 gig speeds, I was told that I would be signing up for a 1-year contract in order to get a lower price on my internet, save another $20. And so it's like, all right, 1 year, that's, I could do that and enjoy the nice fast internet. Well, although our internet speed did improve from where it was, their baseline internet plan before, and the price cut in half from $200 with the cable and basic internet to $100 with the maximized 1 gig speed internet, never achieving anywhere near that speed because of the signal share was, but in the process of leaving Xfinity, when I made the change in the plan, I was told I was signing up for a 1-year contract. They actually put me on for 2 years, according to the computer system. So, it's like, I didn't sign on for 2 years. 1 year's fine, but I didn't know what our lives were going to be, like in 2 years. So I don't sign up for more than a year on anything. So for the representative at the Xfinity store, when I brought my modem back, she said, oh, there's 9 months left on your contract, which I had signed up for tail end of January of 2019, so like a year ago, 11 months ago, thereabouts. I should only have, a month left on my contract. So the lady said, the representative said that I had 9 months left. It's like, no way, I've been on a 1-year contract for 11 months, do that math. And so she did some more little typey type on her computer and pulled up this figure saying that, oh, there's 13 months left on your contract. So that's $130 to buy out, because that's $10 a month on your contract to, to get out of it. Early termination fee. So it's like, no. I have 1 month left on my 1-year contract. So I called the Xfinity customer service, and they said, oh, no, 0 balance due, everything's good, you're fine. Great news. Awesome. Not even 1 month of contract. That's great. And then I get a call back, from the Xfinity customer service satisfaction bot asking how the experience with Xfinity went. So, of course, I rated the Xfinity store quite poorly because of the 2 different figures, and none of them make sense. 9 months, 13 months left on a 1-year contract that I got a year ago was crap. So, I rated the store experience quite low and told them exactly why. And I rated the customer service experience over the phone quite high because, she alleviated my concerns and, looked into it, etc. So I got a call back from a human at Xfinity, a really nice representative, asking what happened at that store, with the different figures and the contract discrepancy and etc. So, I told her again, what had happened, and she looked it up. And according to their files, it says that I signed up for a 2-year contract. But, as I just said a moment ago, I didn't know where life would be 2 years from the start of Operation Freedom. I cut the cable and changed the internet the day after we got into Hotel Confidential. So this was a brand new operation. This is the weekend where Thomas Stetzer was still in my Section 8 apartment with his prostitute and his homeless buddies. So I didn't know what was going to happen in 2 years. I didn't know where we'd be. I'm not guaranteeing that I'll have service for 2 years that's out of line. So I explained that to her. And I also told her what's going on with Operation Freedom and with the court's corruption and with the case laws being in favor of domestic violence and actually going so far as to enforce rape and slavery as the laws, because that's what this so-called relationship was, and that's what the court is continuing with this order of supervised visitation. And this stubbornness about giving parenting time to someone whom the court even says to be unfit as a caregiver or as a decision maker. If you're less qualified than your 9-year-old big sister to watch you or to be anywhere near you, then the reasonable parenting time that the state of Colorado demands in a situation like that is 0. Maybe by Skype on Christmas or something, maybe. Or show that you have undergone some significant improvements in your life and your way of thinking. Like, I've got a neighbor, he's a really nice guy, getting over some trauma in his life and working on addiction recovery. Just as a lot of us, myself included, I'm almost 6 years since I've been drunk or on opiates or any of that garbage, left over from my life in Wisconsin, and every day is one day at a time. So, but, I'm in therapy and counseling and programs, and I have, a team of, people who are trying to advocate for myself and for Aaron and for our recovery from this, captivity situation that Thomas Stetzer put us through. Meanwhile, Thomas Stetzer has not, he's been to 6 out of 36 anger management classes. In the half a year he's been on probation, he's been to 6 classes. He's refusing to take parenting class. The court is refusing to enforce parenting class on him. They demanded that I demonstrate I graduated the class. It was a good, I don't know the class makeup, the schedule, the topics covered, etc., the syllabus. I had to turn in everything I could to the court to document that I had been to this parenting class and that it's an extensively awesome parenting class, in fact better than the parenting after divorce one that they require/recommend. So, I had to jump through hoops to prove that I graduated from this class that I chose to take myself. I signed up for this before Operation Freedom because I wanted to build the relationship between myself and my son post-captivity and post-abuse and post-brutality and, being able to move forward with good parenting tools at my disposal. So, that was my goal, and I, accomplished that goal with flying colors a month and a half into Operation Freedom. Thomas, meanwhile, has not taken step 1 into looking up any parenting class whatsoever. And according to his Stalking Parents chat log, the lack of parenting classes and the lack of anger management classes and the lack of meeting any other responsibility are completely irrelevant, as he says time and time again in the chat log. So he knows that Denver is complacent to his criminality, and he knows that he can do whatever he wants with myself or with Aaron, and he can have his visits, and with those visits he can cement that time of brutality and captivity in my son's mind, just by reintroducing himself into my son's life after this year of freedom. All of a sudden we're going to have to go back 2 times a week for an hour at a time to this visitation place, and that they charge $50 an hour per adult. So for the court to order that we each pay our own costs, that 2 hours a week, all month, that's, $100 a week, 4 weeks, that is $400 a month, that is my entire TANF payment, going directly into the supervised visitation company so that they can put my son in contact with my rapist. That's what this is all about. Bankrupting the help that I am getting, denying me my slave pension and my rape support from our former owner, because I'm just apparently a welfare queen. And that's what it says in the court papers. That because I haven't been awarded my disability claim yet, means that I'm not disabled at all, and that I am choosing to be unemployed and not making any money, because I want to bilk Thomas for everything he's worth. Now that's not the case. I want him out of our lives. If we could sign an agreement that says you don't pay child support, alimony, or nothing on the condition that you just leave us alone and cease all contact and be out of our lives, and Aaron can make his own decision when he's 18, that would be amazing. I wouldn't miss the child support. I wouldn't miss the alimony. I wouldn't say a word of complaint. He's out of our lives. He's out of our lives. He can't harm us. He's never going to come near us. If he does come near us or contact us in any way, he's going, put it on the restraining order. This agreement, if that would ever go through with him. You're not obligated to us in any way. Just stay away. That's all I want. I don't need his money. I don't need him to know where we're at. I don't need him in our lives. I don't need him to co-parent my son. Aaron is the only part of a lifetime of slavery that makes it worth waking up to. Otherwise, I'd have taken the exit ramp a long time ago. But I have this little boy who needs to not become a fourth-generation outlaw biker with a penchant for attacking disabled women and drug-addicted prostitutes living on the streets. I need to do everything in my power to protect my son from that fate, from being a fourth-generation that. Instead, with Operation Freedom and with relocation or with Andrew Yang's plans, if the predator would just leave us alone and let it be safe for us to remain in the United States. If only, right? But if only, then Aaron has an amazing future waiting for him. He's incredibly brilliant. As quickly as he learned brutality, he is learning higher thinking and humane, way of life. He talks and communicates and shares and takes turns, and he's gentle with the kitty. Mumu slept in his bed last night. Door was open to his room. He stayed in his bed. It was awesome. It would have never happened under Stetzer law. Mumu hid under my bed in hopes that Aaron wouldn't, open my door and get in. And, well, it was more Thomas's room. I was allowed to sleep in a small corner of the bed and get pounded as Thomas pretended to sleep. Like, just straight up Warner Brothers every night. Just getting pounded as he's snoring theatrically. But that's what life was. Every aspect of everything was Stetzer slavery hell. That's what dictated everything. But with that being over, Aaron's amazingly brilliant, as wonderful and kind and caring as he is to his peers and his teachers now. And he's, getting better and making progress towards having a mother-son friendly, loving relationship with me. After a lifetime of being taught everything opposite, he, in the 1 year since, he's come so amazingly far. He's, as I've said in prior videos, he's not Aaron Stetzer, brutal attacker anymore. He's Aaron Kirchhoff, sweet, loving preschooler who has a future. I mean, this little boy, in the early stages of his potty training, he figured out how to put tension on the toilet paper roll so that it can tear or cut or whatever. Like, it doesn't do that thing when you try to tear the roll. It stays put. There's tension. You can actually tear the roll. Aaron figured out to put a can of tomato paste on the roll of toilet paper. Just set it on there. As a little bit of friction, as a little bit of resistance. and the toilet paper roll has the perfect friction to rollability. It doesn't rip as you're trying to pull, and it tears when you want it to. It's perfect. Just a little can of tomato paste on top of the roll of toilet paper, and the little standard wall sconce dispenser thing, in your cheap bathroom. Just put a can of tomato paste on there. Aaron figured that out like a couple weeks into potty training, because one of his little friends at school, little boys, taught him to pull the toilet paper and karate chop it, hiya, And so Aaron was so upset because he'd pull the toilet paper and try to karate chop it, and the roller would go, and he'd scream and get so angry, I can't do hiya. And he put a can of tomato paste on there. Mama, I can do hiya. Look, I show you, I do hiya. And whoosh, hiya. And it just cuts. It's perfect. Aaron figured that out all by himself, put a can of tomato paste on the toilet paper roll. This is a 4.5-year-old boy. Just figured out something like that. And, seeing what he builds with his Legos and his Magnetiles is astounding. Or, what he says reacting to the educational videos he watches or the Asian cartoons he watches. Aaron is so brilliant, and he's learning to be so kind and gentle and sociable. I mean, he has a brilliant future. And Aaron loves dinosaurs. I mean, he could dig up a new species. He could be an archaeologist. He could rediscover this planet's history. Or he could send it into whole new realms of possibilities. Just see his aircraft designs with his Legos, or his Magnetiles. It's like space age looking stuff, out of sci-fi. He's just so amazing at his young little age to think in the complex ways that he does. Aaron has unlimited possibilities and unlimited potential, and he's still so strong and athletic. He could pay for his future by playing sports or getting into construction or anything he wants to do. Aaron can be whoever he wants to be. And, whereas I want to do everything in my power to allow that and foster that growth, our former owner did everything he could during his 5 years of ownership and the 1 year since to control and repress and diminish and own and take and consume and destroy. That's what abuse is. That's what ownership is. You use it until you consume it, and then it's destroyed and it's gone. That's what Thomas Stetzer does to people. He's been targeting disabled women from 1979 until 2019, when he transitioned onto homeless, drug-addicted prostitutes. He serializes his victims, and hopefully we survive. And he's Denver's darling because his probation officer made him get a job, and he has an apartment because he has nothing to spend his money on other than his piece of crap van, and then lying about the van not running, yet he drives it everywhere. It's just stupid beyond belief. But, it needs to come to an end, and it will. Because, keep your eyes and ears peeled for, something that I've been working on with the advocates of the people I've been talking to with Operation Freedom. Watch out for something that'll be known as the Discrimination Deterrent Bureau. survivors of mistreatment, would have access, help get a voice recording apps, different softwares, different storage devices, cheap little $5 thumb drive at Walmart, won't cost the agency much money. But, have ways to document instances of prejudice or abuse or domestic violence or, mistreatment in society, in the home, in the workplace, etc. Document, erase that anonymity, erase that ability to hide and conceal the mistreatments and the misdeeds. Document the issues. Bring your documentation, any witnesses you can find, to see what's going on and speak about it. Have the courage to actually, speak. If you want to, you want to be a good friend, just talk about what you're seeing in a situation is the first step. But bring your documentation into your Discrimination Determined Bureau advocate representative and, go over conflict resolution. Like if it's in the workplace, move the offending party to another department where they won't be in contact. Or if it's a domestic violence situation, get them the heck out, get a restraining order, get everything done properly and correctly with no corruption and complacency in the courts, thank you. Get our young men interested and involved in learning ways to not hit women, right, Joe Biden? Bring our documentation forth to our advocate, get conflict resolution to actually occur for once, instead of just sweeping it under the rug and punishing the survivor. We need backup, we need support, we need Team Give a Darn. And that's what the Discrimination Determined Bureau will be. We will finally, through modern documentation methods, be able to expose and end just such injustice as what occurs in American society today. Like if I had had a Discrimination Determined Bureau in Wisconsin when I was being forcibly labored for, Doug Condon with his computer repair business out in Eustisford. I heard he moved to Juneau. But, running this computer repair gig, unpaid, business expenses that I had to come up with for him, living on unemployment, paying him full rent, not making anything for my work and my time and my expenses and everything I needed to do for him, while, just like with Thomas Stetzer, being at his beck and call, being forced to serve at any time of day or night. I was not allowed to not answer my phone. I was, for all intents and purposes, the property of Douglas Condon. If I had had the Discrimination Determined Bureau back in, 2012, 2011? This was a while ago. But if I had had that resource, there'd been like a little tape recorder in my purse, recording the court hearing or recording the conversations that I'd have with Douglas, the arguments about when am I actually finally getting paid, because you have one human employee and two disabled employees, and your cousin and I aren't getting paid, while the non-crippled human employees been getting paid every single week. This is what Doug Condon did to myself and to his own cousin, because we're both disabled. So I would have had my documentation method, my tape recorder, to document this mistreatment. And when the unemployment hearing would have come about, he wouldn't have been able to hack into my computer with no data backup because I couldn't afford a thumb drive. They were expensive back then, more expensive than what I could afford. I would have had my documentation. He couldn't have taken more criminal steps to delete the files on my computer. I had my invoices, my hour logs, everything else. I would have had that at court. And when that crooked judge would have suppressed my evidence and suppressed my subpoenas for witnesses and everything else, I would have been able to document that with my tape recorder. And when the hearing, the fracas hearing ended, and Judge James Moe asked Doug Condon, "Oh, so we still going golfing on Saturday?" at the golf course that hadn't even been mentioned during the hearing, so this was prior knowledge and arrangement. I would have had that on recording as well. However, I didn't have a discrimination deterrent bureau to help us with tools and backup and resources and, someone to care that this is going on. And as a result of that, I'm not going to see a tax return until the slave state of Wisconsin sees back the money that they penalized me because I lived on unemployment while I was forcibly working unpaid for Douglas Condon. So, this documentation and this discrimination deterrent bureau, and a legal team attached to it to help enforce conflict resolution. Case laws getting changed, corruption getting exposed and reversed. This is what we need. We need the Discrimination Deterrent Bureau. Otherwise, at the end of the day, somebody like Doug Condon or Thomas Stetzer who just take you as their property and that's that. You can't throw money at something like that. Those are humans who just take that money and use it to continue confining you. You can't just get out from under everybody with $1,000 a month in Medicare and Section 8. It takes actual empowerment. It takes numbers. It takes people to make justice finally possible, to make safety finally possible, to end laws that enforce rape and slavery as practices in Wisconsin, in Colorado, and around the United States. The reason I'm so publicly going on with with the events of Operation Freedom is because there are so many other survivors who are enduring the same slavery hell and the same aftermath and the same situations. There's a lot of Me Too out there, all over the United States. That's why I'm making all these videos and publicizing the events, of Operation Freedom. Because if I don't speak up, nobody else will speak up. It takes a pebble to drop in the pond before there are any ripples. And it takes all of us who've had those pebbles thrown at us to expose that wrongdoing. We can't remain silent and expect things to get better, because the attackers and the wrongdoers and the people who just don't care will be able to freely deny that these injustices ever take place even. So we need to work together. We need to stop this together, because individuals on our own can't make changes up against the river. It takes the whole group of salmon to get the eggs laid. So, thanks for tuning in to another update from Hippie Eclectic Hope for Yang. And in the process, of all these advocates and therapists and people I'm talking to about these laws that need to get changed in Colorado for custody and etc. With the changing the corruption. I've been very openly speaking with very many people about this issue because it needs to stop finally. But in the process of speaking with all these people, I've been able to leave them with the message of hope. That there's Andrew Yang out there to ensure that victims become survivors and that survivors become thrivers. That we aren't dragged through the mud, and that's the end of the story. Andrew Yang's here to help us lift ourselves out of the mud and into the light. So, with this 160 policies and then outlining certain ones, just with the freedom dividend and Medicare for all, and Section 8 being included with the freedom dividend now, as it has been a few months now, that's old news. But I was just so delighted at the development. I just can't get over it. But anyway, the American Walls Act and the resources for veterans and single parents and kids in rough situations and so many other plans. There's 160 and counting. It's probably per or 200 policies that Andrew Yang has ready to rock and roll for each and every one of us who can call ourselves United States citizens. It is through this revolutionary thinking that we can overcome. That it's not always going to come down to who has the better caseworkers and who asks the questions when the budgeting checks are written. It's going to come down to what can we do as citizens to build and work and thrive for ourselves. Not for some schmuck who has to pay us $15 an hour until he can find a way to get rid of us with the robot as soon as possible. We're not going to be ticking the time down until we can't make any money working for a company. We're going to be able to work for ourselves and do for ourselves and our families and our communities. It's, only Andrew Yang has the amazing ideas ready to rock and roll. As I've discussed in my Yang story video, I can have an old Sports Authority or the old Herbergers in Beaver Dam or, some old shop, old mall location and put my arts and crafts up there, posters of my Zazzle products and have consignment shops shelf space for other artists. Denver is very big in the art community. Everybody's tinkering with something. Everybody's making and creating something here in Denver. It's very magical. But we're all stifled because, starving artist is not a new concept. Andrew Yang's policies will make it possible to be an artist. Make it possible to find a way to work for ourselves. How many new little landscaping companies are there going to be? Or fence companies? Or restaurants? Or barber shops? Or craft shops like mine? There's going to be so much going on. We won't know what to do with it all. All the new businesses that American families are going to be able to start in our shut down main streets. Only Andrew Yang has that plan in mind. Otherwise, society is just going to keep depleting itself while we attack each other, and those with power will continue to gain, and those without resources and power and money will continue to decline, and that's just going to be the state of things. I can't exist like that. And so many my fellow Americans are agreeing that we can't stand for that anymore. We need President Andrew Yang to make the changes. So, well, I gotta get boogieing though. Shoot, I gotta get my son from school. God bless you. Take it easy, and I'll catch you again later. Hippie Collective Hope for Yang signing out.